It works. Good morning, everybody. It's nice to have you all here and so many visitors. Hope that everybody had a nice Christmas um, and that everything went well. I spent my Christmas with a couple of very energetic children. So yeah, so it was very fun, but very exhausting as well at the same time. So, all right. Okay. So this morning, I've entitled my little talk this morning, Prevention is Better Than Cure. I suppose we go into a new year. Everybody looks to make New Year's resolutions. A lot of them revolve around health. And so this is just a slightly different perspective on what you would traditionally hear about health. A lot of this has come from conversations with my mom, who has worked in preventative care. So for a long time in probably the most established preventative care system in the world, which is in the UK. Not that other countries don't have it, but they seem to have a very advanced system. So this is coming out of her experiences mainly and some of my research. So we're going to take a biblical story and put it into a very modern context, a current context. All right. Let's have a word of prayer before I start. Kind of most of us, Father in heaven, and pray that to me. My words are spoken and not yours. And may we all be able to gain something from what we're going to learn. We ask all these things in your precious name. Amen. All right. So prevention is better than cure. That's down. All right. Okay. So two people here you see on the picture. One is Erasmus, who was a Dutch philosopher. And the other one is Benjamin Franklin. So both of them had sayings. One said that an ounce of prevention is better than cure. And Erasmus said that, that prevention is better than cure. Now, funnily enough, well, not funnily, ironically, Erasmus died of dysentery, which is a totally preventable disease. I might not have known how to prevent it then. We certainly do know how to prevent it now. And there's a slight irony in there, which we'll pick up. For those people who say they are healthy, or who are people who are health providers, or people who are meant to be like ministers for health, it's ironic that many of those very people are incredibly unhealthy. And the Bible has something to say about that. All right, so preventative care, what is it? So preventative care is an approach to healthcare that aims to prevent health problems from developing and keeping people out of hospital or out of the medical system as much as possible, as is possible. Because the kind of diseases that we get now in this world are incredibly expensive. And so governments, particularly the UK government, who don't like spending money, thought that it might be a good idea that you keep people out of hospital and away from getting sick because it's expensive. This is important because we now live what the World Health Organization have said, and the CDC and most other health organizations across the world have said, is we've moved from an era of communicable disease, which is disease that's transferred from human to human, into an era of non-communicable disease, which we broadly term as lifestyle disease. It doesn't only include lifestyle diseases, but primarily non-communicable diseases are primarily lifestyle diseases. And by lifestyle diseases, I mean things like diabetes, cancer, heart disease. Those things are non-communicable lifestyle diseases. Not all the time, but the majority of the time that people get those diseases is because of things that they have done. That's why they call them lifestyle. The goal of preventative healthcare is to reduce the likelihood of someone becoming ill, disabled, or dying prematurely, which can which in having preventative care, it can save lives, it can increase lifespans and reduce healthcare costs. through simple things like lifestyle modification, health education, food education, nutrition education, and appetite education. Mental health is also included in that as well. It is an ideal baseline for preventative care. These ideas are an ideal baseline for preventative care. Preventative care is different from traditional or what we would call reactive care or proactive care. Reactive care focuses on treating health problems when they become apparent. So in other words, when symptoms have showed up, or when you go for a scan and they see a lump or they see a bump, that's when reactive care often comes in. But reactive care is incredibly expensive. Preventative care is tailored to each individual. It's meant to be. When my mom was doing it, the patient would come and tell them about their lifestyle and what they do, etc. And then you tailor a program for them. So it's very discussionary. It is based on such things as age, sex, background, lifestyle, physical, environmental, social interactions. All of those things come into a preventative care program. Because humans and medical systems are so bad at the moment, what has happened is some health organizations have begun to use AI because human beings just don't seem to be able to do it properly, to do this kind of care properly. So people are beginning to use AI to actually get this done. That's not ideal. I don't advocate for that, but that is what that the medical systems are so bad at preventative care that AI has got involved, artificial intelligence. As we go through this discussion, we read the story earlier. What we'll do is we'll look at how it is that the story in the Bible relates to preventative care. So we're taking a biblical situation, a biblical story, and making it relevant to our current world situation. The situation which Jesus met with the man at the pool was not ideal. The man had been sick for 38 years. That's a long time to be sick, right? It was not purely a preventative care scenario. Rather, it was a cure scenario with a preventative lesson, right? A cure scenario. So Jesus was administering urgent care, so to speak. That's a more reactive care system, but the lesson to be learned from it was actually a preventative care lesson. We are only as good as our weakest link. Sometimes what happens is that there needs to be an injection of action in order to get somebody to a state where they can actually implement preventative care. So what happens is, under the traditional system, people make themselves ill by ignoring preventative care. So if you ignore preventative care for long enough, what will happen is you'll have a catastrophic event. And when you have a catastrophic event, you need to have a care system that's going to intervene immediately. So we're only as strong as the weakest link in our chain, right? And so what the current care system does is it often strengthens that chain, that weakest link, so that the person can survive the event, right? But once the person has survived the event, what happens after that? What happens after the person survives the event? That's more important. And that's what the lesson that Jesus was trying to teach. And we'll go into that in detail. So after the event, what changes are you going to make in order that the event doesn't happen again? So we're going to go into some of the words that Jesus said during the conversation that he had with the man. What was the implication of what he was saying? When Jesus said to the man, "Will thou be made whole?" he was asking him if he wanted his independence and freedom. Wholeness, a complete circle, means total, right? He was asking him, do you want your independence and freedom? In his current situation, he was dependent on others people present to lift him up, take him to the water. The idea was that the idea of the story is that the water, when the water moved, is that the first person to get in or whoever got in would be healed, right? So that's why he was at the pool. So he needed people, because of his state, he needed people to take him up if the water moved and put him in the water. So Jesus said, do you want to remain in decision? Do you want to be independent and free? Do you want to be whole? If indeed the water did move, then there was no one to take the man there. In his current situation, healing was only available to those who are mobile and healthy. So the whole situation was actually not one that was actually conducive to people who were not healthy, because they couldn't even get to the pool if they were in a really bad state. He needed the healing of the water most, but was in a condition that actually disadvantaged him. Jesus's focus wasn't on the moving of the water or whether the water moved or not. It was getting the man away from the water, from the dependence of being there. What does it mean to be whole? Being whole is about release and freedom, and about being able to be not dependent on things, people, or circumstances for support. Jesus wasn't against support. He was against otherwise unnecessary support caused by avoidable circumstances. Jesus was not just talking about wholeness in relation to the man being healed. He was talking about things like longevity and vitality, which makes a person whole. It is not magic, luck, or chance. The human body has been designed for wholeness. Even in a world of imperfection and insults and compromises to our human body, like radiation and all of those things, the human body has been designed to actually overcome the negative things that are around us. Not all the time, like if you pound your body with enough negative stuff, or you stay underneath a pylon that's pumping, like, electromagnetic, you're going to get ill. But if it's just about participating in everyday life, which we all do, if it's just about participating in everyday life, the human body has been designed to get over those compromises and insults to our human body system. So if we the reason it is able to do that is if we are able to cooperate with what has been designed. Jesus said in John 10:10, he says, he's designed that he wants us to have abundant life. But it's not just abundant life like in heaven, it's abundant life here and now. This is taken from Ministry of Healing. It says, but the book Ministry of Healing by Ellen G. White, it says, let it be made plain that the way of God's commandments is the way of life. God has established the laws of nature, but his laws are not arbitrary extractions. Every thou shalt not, whether physical or moral, implies a promise. If we obey it, blessings will extend our steps. God never forces us to do right, but he seeks to save us from evil and leads us to the good. The want. See, what happened to that man was he was in a situation where his health had negatively impinged on him so that he couldn't accomplish anything. But the design, the wish for God in the promise is that he wants us to be in good health. Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers. In other words, The soul is generally seen as a spiritual thing. So what really should be happening is there should be a symbiosis between health and spirituality. There's meant to be a union between the two. The preventative health system actually helps to establish this. One is not a good decision maker if one is ill. So the moral and the natural law work together. Optimum preventative health and prosperous health addresses both physical and spiritual. They have to come together. The idea of preventative health and nature's health laws is for the good of mankind. Health and preventative health care is a social justice issue. Right? This is a social, we don't think of it as a social justice issue, but it is. Often when we think about social justice in relation to health, we think about access to healthcare. When something goes wrong, how long does it take me? In other words, for the US system, it would be, have I got access to health insurance? How much is my health insurance? We heard about what happened in the US with that CEO the other day. Deny, defend, depose. How does that impinge? Most of the argument online is like, this is unfair because it impinges on people's access to health. In our country, access to health, social justice as a social justice issue, how long does it take me, because we live in a more social healthcare system, how long does it take me to get treatment? That's a social justice issue, because the longer I stay without treatment is the iller I get and the more likely I am to suffer a bad outcome. However, preventative healthcare is what allows access to everyone when things go wrong, bringing the cost of healthcare down for everyone, regardless of the system of government, whether private or public. Because the issue is that if so many people are ill, right? If so many people are ill, then the issue is that there'll never be enough money, there will never be enough healthcare to actually treat those people. God's desire for us is to reach a standard of perfection made possible for us through the gift of Christ. He calls upon us to make our choice for the right. In other words, if we're going to, we have to see health in a proper way. To connect with heavenly agencies, to adopt principles that will restore the divine image. In his written word and in the great book of nature, he has revealed principles of life. It is our work to obtain a knowledge of these principles, and by obedience, cooperate with him in restoring health to the body as well as to the soul. What lessons can we learn about the pool? The man was situated around the pool. What lessons can we learn about the pool, which we could use? The pool could be seen as a loose metaphor for a healthcare system. Everyone was gathered around it that was sick. So we just treat it as a metaphor for a healthcare system. Where something comes from is important. In other words, what is the motivation and inspiration behind a treatment regime? Is it to solve an underlying problem, or is it to keep people hanging out around the pool? This may not be deliberate or by design. It may just be a consequence of the system. Sometimes we participate in things and the things are so big that it just draws, like a giant magnet. It just draws everybody in. But nobody thinks about what the system, what should be the ideal role of the system. Is the ideal role of the system to just keep people around the pool? Or is it to actually release people from being around the pool? A whole industry had grown up around a need for people to be at the pool. There were probably vendors selling food and water for the people who were at the pool. There were probably people who were hired to go and look at the pool to see if there was analyzed, to see whether anything moved. There were other people around who were paid to carry people to the pool when the water moved. A whole industry had developed around the pool that kept the pool going. The people serving the system would say that the pool is good and it must stay as it gives people hope. The people working within the system were not bad. Neither is it wrong to help somebody or to offer somebody help within that system. However, Jesus came to deliver and free from restrictive systems that mar the image of God. In other words, could you imagine the scramble that there would have been to get to the water if somebody thought that it moved, right? This is not, it's not a fair system. It's not a system that engenders humanity. It's not a system that lifts up the higher morals. It's based on selfishness. So we have to understand that systems sometimes, just their massiveness and design, actually engender negativity, a negative human response. Jesus healed a man, but he also gave him instruction and encouragement that would not see him back at the pool. That's preventative care. If the pool is a metaphor for the health system, then Jesus is a true healer and a true curer. When you're a true healer, when you're a true curer, regardless of the initial interaction with the human being, whether it's a heart transplant, whether it's a drug that stops you from getting blood clots, there would have been an initial cause that got you there, but preventative care makes sure that you don't return. Oh, unfortunately, that's discipline. Jesus wasn't being punitive when he said to the man, after he was healed, go and sin no more, lest a worse thing should happen to thee. What he wanted to get the man and us to understand is that wrong actions have consequences on your physical body, and that the natural laws he has designed are there to keep us in prosperous health. The idea is to involve us and teach us of the work of the body that he has designed. It is to give us bodily understanding of what is going on inside of us individually. What does it mean to be in prosperous health? This is about behavior to prevent potential sickness and disease, or reverse it once known, once knowledge has been obtained. As far as Jesus was concerned, he wished for mankind to be disease and sickness free. That was what he wanted. This is about maintaining one's mind in the best condition possible to perceive him and the world. Again, if one is sick, then it's difficult for us our focus is on getting better, not on perceiving the world and understanding what is going on around us. If one is sick and under the influence of either medication or an individual, both have a potential to disrupt the decision-making process. And again, there's nothing wrong with either medication or medical instruction of an individual. It's consequential. If you're not sick, you don't need a physician, right? That's what Jesus says. Those who are not sick do not need a physician. I come and seek and to save those who are lost. So there is always a place for a physician if one is sick, but that's not the idea that God wants us to be under. However, the idea is to avoid secondary influences. That's what he was saying, over our bodies and our mind. Everyone knows that when one is ill or under the influence of medication, we think, act, and make decisions in different ways and for many different reasons. So ideally, that's what God doesn't want us under that system. Although the help should be available for those who need it. Philippians chapter 3, verse 18 is a warning. For many walk, of whom I told you often, and now tell you with weeping, that they are enemies of the cross, whose end is destruction, whose God is their belly, and whose glory is their shame, who mind earthly things. There is a strong link, again, I've talked about this before, there is a strong link between belly, meaning appetite, mind and behavior, and illness, both mental and physical. The issue is that if individuals have problems with appetite, which will eventually make you sick, then, or it will make your mind, it will start influencing your behavior, then that will affect your decision-making processes. And we know in this world that, particular for people of power, if this is an issue, if appetite is an issue, then it will lead to bad decisions. And when people like that make decisions, millions of people are affected. And I think we don't pay much attention to this as human beings, or as a society, but intemperance, an inability to control one's appetite will lead to bad decisions, and those bad decisions have monumental consequences. Again, another important point when it comes to preventative care, because preventative care also deals with appetite. Jesus's instruction to the man was simple and visual. This is another point that I think Jesus was trying to make. It was simple and very visible. Jesus saith unto him, rise, take up thy bed and walk. Very simple instruction. Jesus needed to be able, people need to be able to see and enact their own change. See and enact their own change. That's why the instruction was very simple. And it needs to be easy to implement. There are divine the response, the things that Jesus gave the man to do were easy to implement, and they were things that he can do very easily. They were visual because what we see inspires others. And the more natural and visual the solution, the more inspiration towards the creator. The less dependence on the arm of man is the more faith will be inspired, because the likelihood is that the foundations of man's involvement are not necessarily pure ones. In other words, there might be things like capitalism. How much money can I make from this product which I can give to sick people, right? I've got my investors to look after, my share price as well, right? So I'm saying that the motivations behind it, and there's also things like other underlying driving forces or factors like evolution and faithlessness and greed, right? Those are all things which are pushing the underlying. Now, and again, this is not to do with the individuals who are administering the health. My mom was a doctor, so this is not to do with them. Their motives been very, very pure, but these are organizations which are wanting to sell their product, right? As simple as that, right? They've got their business model, you've got your moral model. So Jesus healed again, not so the man would return, but that so he'd be totally liberated. Preventative care takes that away from the model. Much of my research, again, as I've said before, comes out of the UK, came out of the things which my mum was telling me throughout her life. And this isn't the only thing, but this is part of what she was doing. Even though I believe that personal responsibility should be taken for our decisions, this is what Jesus was seeking to inspire in the man, and he seeks to inspire with us. I think that policy can also help inspire. It can sometimes be used as a forceful thing, but I think government policy can also help inspire people to make healthy decisions. In 2018, this was a speech that was given by the then Health and Social Care Secretary, Matt Hancock, who was in government during that time. My mom worked with him and some of his policies that he put in place under his government. It's interesting because he is one of the only health secretaries who actually looked healthy, and he actually practiced health, right? Again, we should be models of that which we promote. I'm not saying anything. He had some indiscretions during COVID, but for his moral indiscretions, I think he was a good health secretary, and one who really liked working with people like my mom, or doctors like my mom, who wanted a preventative healthcare system. Anyway, listen to what he says, and then we'll look at a text that really reflects the essence of his policy. I don't know about his Christianity, but I could easily link what he said there with the text which I'm going to look at afterwards. He said, ultimately, the heart of our public provision for healthcare, there's a social contract, right? And I think this model here obviously works with the Canadian model, because it's not an American model necessarily, but the way we do healthcare in Canada is very much the same as we do in the UK. So it could work here as well. So the words that he says here could equally apply to Canada. We, the citizens, have a right to a healthcare we need when we need it, free at points of use. But we have a responsibility to use the health service carefully, with consideration for others, and to comply with medical advice to look after ourselves. Because the NHS is not just a service, it is a shared stake in society. Too much of health debate in England has been about our rights, what we deserve, and what the NHS can deliver. And of course, those rights are important. Too much of health, and those rights are important, but I think we need to pay more attention to our responsibilities as well as our rights. Today, I want to talk about those responsibilities and our task for the National Health Service to help empower people to make health, to take care of their own health, because only with better prevention can our NHS be sustainable in the long term. This is taken from 1 Corinthians 6, 19 and 20. What? Know ye not that your bodies are the temple of God, which is in you, which ye have of God, and are not your own? For ye are bought with a price. Therefore glorify God in your bodies and in your spirits, which are God's. There are divine and love imperatives in this verse. We are talking about love for our fellow human beings in the way that we treat our body temples. This is more important than healing, cures, or medication. How we treat our bodies in the light of other people, particularly in a system where everybody puts into a pot and can draw out at any point. There is an unspoken love for God and an unspoken love for others. It's a contract, and we testify of that contract, that love for God and love for man, through the way that we treat our bodies. From the Christian's perspective, this speaks directly to the type of God that we serve. This is the wholeness that Jesus wanted the man to understand. Preventative care inspires us to maintain the wholeness of our bodies for both ourselves and for others. In so doing, we fulfill the law of love, which again engenders love for God and love for man. And it's an interesting way of seeing healthcare, that we look after our bodies. When we contribute to a pot, we look after our bodies in a sense, not only for ourselves, but also for others. Matt Hancock saw health as a social contract and as a patriotic imperative, because with finite resources, it is selfish to consume that which is limited, which, if not for your choice, would be available for somebody else through no fault of their own when their need arose. And there will be never enough money in any nation's resources to pay for people's poor health choices. In the same vein as Matt Hancock's comment on preventative healthcare, my mom once said, this is what she said once: you cannot have good health, good public health, without healthy people. Indeed, you cannot even have a proper functioning healthcare system. You will spend the endless ages of eternity fighting fires on immovable bottlenecks in a consistently compromised system. Policy can have an impact on behavior. It also affects spiritual things. We need to form a better understanding of how our appetite works and in an understanding of our body. But it is better, and without the force of policy, it's better that these attributes, this understanding of our body, the controlling of our appetites, paying attention to the nature of ourselves as human beings. It is better that these attributes are developed without the overarching influence of government policy, like putting a tax on sugary drinks or many other things which governments are trying to help people with their health. It's better that we just naturally do it, because government usually overreacts. When it's trying to generate policy, government usually overreacts. In conclusion, returning back to what Jesus said to the man that he healed: behold, thou hast been made whole. Sin no more, lest a worse thing should happen to you or to thee. We are saying that there are laws which govern the human body and which govern health These laws are as true and as important as laws like the Ten Commandments, which governs moral behavior. We just normally don't take the health laws as seriously, but they are incredibly important. Jesus did not want to see the man back at the pool. Again, neither did he want to have to heal him again. In obedience to the laws the health laws that God had instituted, he wanted the man to cooperate with those. The promise that was made in Exodus is the same promise that he was given to the man when he said, Go and sin no more, lest the worst thing should happen to you, because you've been liberated. There are rules which you have been given to keep you away from the pool. I don't want to see you here again. But it's a promise. This is a promise that Jesus made. He made it back in Exodus, and it stood its test all the way down through time. We may have forgotten it, but it still stands today. If you will be diligent and listen to the voice of God. Remember, God doesn't just, he speaks to us through our body as well as an individual person. He speaks to each of us through our bodies because he designed them. I'll start again. If you will diligently listen to the voice of God and do that which is right in his eyes, and give ear to his commandments and keep his statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you that I put on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord. I'm the Lord, your healer. And that healing there that he's talking about is not the healing he done to the man, is a healing that's in all of us, that he gives naturally to all of us, and that's inside of us. It's not the healing that he gave to the man. He's talking about the healing that is available just through us doing what God has asked us to do and understanding the principles that govern our body. And so that's in essence what another way of viewing that story which Jesus told. So as we contemplate on those things, let's think about health in a more holistic way. As we go into the new year, think of health as not just me keeping my body, but keeping my body for somebody else, and being a demonstration of, if we believe in that we have been created, a demonstration of the Creator that we believe in. Okay.